Rashod Bateman is a massive piece in the Baltimore Ravens offense, but that doesn't mean other teams are going to not try to pry him away from Baltimore. We talk about the report that the Ravens shut down a potential Rashod Bateman trade inquiry and so much more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher, Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here on this bonus edition. It's a Saturday, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day, your first listen each and every day as well. We're free and available for you on all podcasting platforms, including in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel, as an audio form where you can follow along and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. We're a 5-day-a-week Ravens show, so Monday through Friday is our regularly scheduled show, but we also have bonus episodes like today when there's big stuff going on. We go live after every single Ravens game and every single piece of Ravens big news. So if you, a friend, a family member, want daily Ravens coverage, be sure to check us out here over at Locked On Ravens. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. I'm not sure if anybody was expecting to see me on their screen or on their phone today talking Ravens football, but we got a report yesterday from Jordan Schultz that I thought warranted coming on here to talk about, not waiting until Monday. And that's kind of what we do here on Locked On Ravens, where if there is that piece of big news, well, we come on here and talk about it. And the Rashod Bateman conversation has been a fascinating one over the course of his career. We'll talk about the team that was potentially interested. The report coming out again from Jordan Schultz. We'll dive into everything with that in the first part of the show. We'll also talk about the Ravens getting good news on a grievance that was filed from a former player. And then we'll get into a little fun in the final segment. Lamar Jackson revealed some behind-the-scenes details on his acting debut in Power Raising Canaan, and we'll talk about how his teammates reacted to it because the episode dropped on Thursday night, Friday morning, and it certainly has drawn a bunch of different reviews. So let's just dive into it here again. Bonus episode of the show, and it's a bonus episode because we got word yesterday from Jordan Schultz that the Dallas Cowboys, who did trade in the AFC North for a wide receiver, George Pickens was the guy that they ended up getting. Well, it wasn't only George Pickens that they were reportedly pursuing. Jordan Schultz, who is the Fox Sports NFL insider, saying that during their pursuit of a wide receiver, it was another AFC North wide receiver they were also pursuing, and that was Rashod Bateman, Ravens wide receiver. Now, Jordan Schultz saying those talks did not go far. And honestly, I mean, let's be honest, I'm glad that they did not. I think that was certainly the right call from Eric DeCosta and company, but I think the first thing that came to my mind after, okay, yeah, let's not do that, Ravens, and good call on not doing it, is, wait, other teams want to trade for Ravens receivers? We've been praying for times like this. We've been trying to get moments like this and players like this, receivers that were worthy enough to be traded for from other teams, that other teams wanted Ravens receivers. We've been through it with Ravens receivers, especially those that are homegrown and home talent, drafted talent. Like, it's been a while, right? It's been a long process to get a guy like that, let alone two of them, and Rashod Bateman and Zay Flowers in the building. It's just a different feeling. Like, it makes sense, too, obviously, why Dallas would want to go and trade for a guy like Rashod Bateman. Now, we'll talk about the value between a guy like Pickens and Bateman and whatnot, but Bateman was a baller, an absolute baller for Baltimore during the 2024 season. And if you remember, I mean, if you've been with me on Locked On Ravens for a while, going through Bateman's career over the first handful of seasons, or even just last year, the debate about this was make or break for Bateman in 2024, I mean, you can look at him and say, yeah, first of all, he made it. It was not a break season for Rashod. He made it. 45 catches for 756 yards and 9 touchdowns. He had 16.8 yards per reception. But he's also, in my opinion, on the best contract in football. Like hands down. There's not even a debate about this, in my opinion. His contract, it was an extension that he signed with the Ravens, 2-year, $12 million extension. That contract runs through 2026. Obviously, that was a product of his agent and him messing up the 5th-year option thing. So he was actually going to be a free agent this year. But Baltimore got him on a extremely cheap contract that carries a base salary of $3.7 million this year and $6.5 million next year. You look at the way wide receiver contracts are going, you're getting guys signing $11 million contracts who barely have production. Other guys that don't have any production getting 12, 13, 10, $9 million per season. Bateman's contract, in my opinion, is the best in football. So it makes sense Dallas would want to trade for a guy like Bateman. And I think that gives him more value than a guy like Pickens at this point because you don't have to deal with the behavioral stuff. Pickens got traded for a third and a fifth. And I just feel like Bateman is a really important piece of that offense. Like, not only from the, what can you get for Bateman perspective, but from the, Bateman's a huge reason, hopefully, this season why Baltimore's going to be in contention for a Super Bowl. Like, you don't trade away pieces like that while you are contending. And obviously, nothing happened here. The Ravens, I'm sure, agree with everything I'm saying here. And according to Jordan Schultz, the conversations were very short. I'm sure Eric DeCosta picked up that phone. Jerry Jones goes, "Hey, Eric, we're in the market for a wide receiver. Would you be willing to trade us for Rashod?" Phone, hang up the phone. Boom, right there. It's done. No more. That's all. And obviously, I'm sure Eric DeCosta had the courtesy to hear him out and say, respectfully, Jerry, we're not going to do that. And then that was the end of that conversation. But you know what? Jerry had to try. The Cowboys had to try. And look, if I'm Baltimore, this might be a hot take, and I'm sure it is, but I'm going to say it anyway because I believe it. I don't think the Ravens should have accepted anything if, and again, they shouldn't have, but if they were to move on from Rashod Bateman at this point in time, shouldn't be anything less than a first rounder. It shouldn't be. And again, you don't have to deal with the behavioral issues. George Pickens is projected, I think, on SpoTrack to have his value right now. His average is supposed to be $25.3 million. The contract extension he's supposed to sign 4 years, $101 million. That in itself is value because you're obviously trading for a talented player in George Pickens, but with the behavioral stuff and the massive contract with Bateman, you don't have any of that. Plus, I think the production has the potential. Bateman and Pickens, depending on how things go, I think the production can be similar. I do. And, does that mean Bateman's going to have better numbers than Pickens this year? I mean, I think that Dallas is going to have to rely on him and CeeDee Lamb a lot. And I'm sure there will be more volume for Rashod than there will, or for Pickens, excuse me, than there will be for Rashod. But it brings up such fascinating conversations. Again, what I just talked about a couple minutes ago, man, people want to trade for Ravens receivers. Like, this is what I dreamed for. These were the days that I was dreaming about. And now we are in those moments. But to also see that other teams want these guys and the fact that Bateman played well enough to warrant that consideration, because Dallas, just for those who haven't kept up with Dallas' situation, before Pickens came in, they did not have anybody outside of CeeDee Lamb. It was CeeDee Lamb and friends, as I've heard kind of thrown around, where it was nobody else. CeeDee Lamb has had to deal with guys like Brandon Cooks, Jalen Tolbert, like just guys who aren't nearly to his level and aren't to the level of wide receiver twos. And that's kind of what we were talking about with Lamar early in his career. It's just like, even with wide receiver ones, like, where's the weaponry for Lamar Jackson? And now obviously with Zay and Rashod, you bring in DeAndre Hopkins, like Lamar has those weapons. But for Dallas, they've been truly searching for that guy, that Robin next to the Batman of CeeDee Lamb. And you know what? Sure, it would have been nice for Dallas to get a guy like Rashod Bateman, but he's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere, especially on that deal. He's not going anywhere. He's so important to what Baltimore does. He's a field stretcher for them, comes up clutch on third downs. Yeah, he'll drop a pass here and there, and that's all right. But you know what? I give Rashod a ton of credit for stepping up the way that he did last season. Felt like he was one of the most reliable targets on that offense. And he just gets open, man. And he's a hard worker. You can just tell how badly he wants it. And the chemistry, this is the big thing too. Like we talked about it last offseason, Lamar and Rashod needed to develop chemistry on the field together. Rashod wasn't available and wasn't healthy when Lamar was on the field early in his career. And then Lamar got hurt when Rashod was available. And those two timelines just weren't linking up together. But then you have last season, Rashod Bateman puts together a full 17-game season after putting together 16 games in 2023, by the way. So 2 really good, healthy years for the most part for Rashod Bateman. And you can just tell, like, Baltimore can use him as a 3-level receiver. That is value. And, like, if Rashod got traded for draft capital, I mean, I just don't know what they would do. I mean, first of all, obviously that should have happened before the draft, if anything. And, we're not talking about it happening because it's not going to. But I just want to provide it in context of, Rashod's a super important part of what they do. And without him, it'd be Zay Flowers, DeAndre Hopkins, Tez Walker, and Tylan Wallace, and LeJontay Wester. That's your group. And it's crazy how much of a drop off that it's crazy how much weight. And I wouldn't say crazy. It's just, it's eye-opening. It's perspective. How much Rashod Bateman's name in that room of Zay, Rashod, DeAndre, and all the other guys compared to just Zay and DeAndre, it takes pressure off of guys. It makes the offense more dangerous. So no trade for Rashod Bateman to the Dallas Cowboys, as it should be. Rashod Bateman is a member of the Baltimore Ravens, and it is going to stay that way. I mean, I'd be floored if they did anything before that contract. He deserves an extension, if we're being honest, another one. But for right now, best contract in the NFL, really solid, productive player. He proved that the moments were not too bright for him, and he popped up in a lot of big ones for Baltimore last season. So Cowboys can go and they can have George Pickens. The Ravens are just fine with Rashod Bateman. But, it wasn't expecting that type of report here. And again, it's not like the Ravens entertained this thing. It's not like they entertained it. Dallas, well within their right to inquire about it, see if Baltimore was interested, but they were never going to be interested. So Rashod Bateman, a member of the Baltimore Ravens. Still, and coming up in the second part of the show, we'll talk about someone who is not a member of the Baltimore Ravens, and the Ravens got good news on the grievance that he filed. So we'll talk about that and more coming up on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your pair of controllers, subscribe or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate EA Play included, and you're ready to go. Dive into hundreds of premium titles, including EA Sports, College Football 25 to Call of Duty, as easily as you stream your favorite shows. And I have my console in one room. I don't want to move it all around, and it's a hassle to do something like that too. But you can jump into your favorite Xbox titles without needing your console in every room, which honestly to me is such a game changer. So you can go to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Again, it's available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. We're back for our second segment here, Locked On Ravens bonus edition on this Saturday. Kevin Oestreicher still here with you. I hope your weekend is off to a great start. The Ravens shutting down a Rashod Bateman inquiry, according to Jordan Schultz. So we're diving into that because I think that is pretty decent news, and I felt like, just couldn't wait to talk about it. So wanted to get a bonus episode in here today. Appreciate everybody for being here. Let's move on and let's talk about the Ravens getting some good news on a grievance that was filed last April to be exact. Tyus Bowser, obviously a pretty key member of a lot of Ravens defenses over the years, was a second-round pick back in 2017. He withdrew his $4.5 million grievance against the team for how they handled his knee injury during the 2023 season, and that's according to team sources. So the Ravens actually get a $1.8 million salary cap credit back on this year's cap. So Brian McFarland, who we had on the show this past week, who's the Ravens salary cap guru, he knows his stuff there, so be sure to check out our episodes throughout the week last week. Brian McFarland saying, last April, Bowser filed a grievance over being placed on the NFI and receiving none of his $4.5 million salary in 2023. Under the CBA, 40% of the grievance is immediately counted on the cap while the grievance was pending, and that will now be removed. So for Bowser, he was someone, and if I remember that year where it just felt like it was a mystery surrounding really what Bowser was able to do versus not do, and he felt ready, but the Ravens didn't, or he felt one way and the Ravens didn't feel like it. Just felt like there were two different viewpoints, and we really never knew why or what was going on with Baltimore at that time and with Bowser at that time. Like, we just never got clarity, and he was a really important part of that defense and someone who had versatility. I mean, look, Bowser turned it on. I mean, if you've been like a everyday listener of Locked On Ravens forever. And again, shout out to all the everydayers out there and all the first-time listeners. If you're in the middle, shout out to you as well. But one of my stories I always told, and I continue to tell it here and there now, but Bowser turned his career around after the first couple years of his career not being that great. That 2019 season was really where he found it. He and Tim Williams came in the same 2017 draft. Bowser was a second-round pick, and Tim Williams was a third-round selection. In 2019, I had said that was the first year I took over the show. And, some of my first episodes, I said this was make or break for both those guys. Who's going to be able to find it and who's not? Bowser found it. Tim Williams was not. Tim Williams was cut after, 4 games, I think, 3 games. That was when they brought in Josh Bynes, LJ Fort. They traded for Marcus Peters a couple weeks later. Tim Williams did not have it. And Eric DeCosta made that move really quickly. Bowser got it. He had 5 sacks, and then he got really consistent. I mean, he only had 2 sacks in 2020. He only had the 2 sacks, but he had 7 in 2021. That was his best year. And the versatility of him dropping back into coverage. And that's something that, he only played 9 games in 2022. And then obviously the year that he did not play in 2023, Baltimore missed him. And now obviously with this grievance, it was him saying, hey, I thought this way about my situation. The Ravens thought this other way. They were with all this different stuff was going on, but it's all gone now. And that's kind of relating back to the different grievances. Obviously Earl Thomas had his, which again, that whole situation was crazy. And then, we've talked about grievances for the last week here on Locked On Ravens, or I guess it's been less than a week. Feels like it's been forever since Justin Tucker got released. But, we talk about the Ravens and their stance and why they are clamoring and screaming from the rooftops. This is a football decision. Well, they don't want to catch a grievance from Tucker. So they are clearly making it be, okay, well, this is a football decision. You can't come at us with all this stuff because the investigation hasn't concluded and all this other stuff. So grievances for the Ravens, it's been somewhat of a popular conversation. And now, you kind of move ahead with this. Baltimore, again, I'm not sure that $1.8 million in cap credit right now is going to do anything for them. It's not like they're going to go out there and, this is what they need to make a move. I think that they can still make do. Obviously, it will help lessen the burden of some other situations. But I think at the end of the day, it's good news regardless for the Ravens. It's, 1.8, almost $2 million is not a small, it's not like $400,000 that they get back here right now. So, Bowser withdrawing it, and we'll just we'll put a bow on it. That's kind of it with that whole situation. So, it's crazy to kind of reminisce on some of these players. Obviously, Bowser being one of them, who I thought he was one of my favorite guys who kind of turned his career into something after a lot of people not having confidence in him and feeling like, it was kind of over after that 2018 season where Baltimore was still trying to find themselves. Lamar obviously comes in that season, but maybe it gives them the leeway to add some, money onto an extension if that rewrites a contract, or, maybe go out and splurge on something. But you know what I think is really going to do? What I think this is really going to be used for? The Ravens love to go into the regular season with money to spend, with the flexibility, whether that is having to pay for other guys to come in once guys get injured, because, you still got to pay guys. Guarantees obviously are a thing, but, if someone big gets injured and that's big guaranteed money, well, you still got to pay to bring in a replacement. So maybe that's what Baltimore holds that money for. Obviously at the trade deadline, or, when they want to make a trade or want to find an aspect or do find an aspect where they can improve the team. The Ravens like having flexibility on their cap. And we do know that the Ravens, they will find ways, they have to find ways to get further under the cap than they are right now. It's not a lot of room right now that they have to operate, but it kind of gives them the opportunity to say, hey, if we really need to address something, and that's something Eric DeCosta, when you talk about Ozzie Newsome style versus Eric DeCosta style, one of the things Eric DeCosta does is if there's a problem, he is pretty quick to try to make that fix for the most part. Ozzie Newsome, I think, was more of a wait-and-see GM. Eric DeCosta is, hey, this is an issue. Let's go address it now. And I'm not saying either approach is right or wrong. Obviously, Ozzie had tons of success as the head man in making those decisions. And Ozzie still has a role in the organization. And Eric obviously has had his successes as well, plenty of successes. But I just think that with this version of the Ravens and with the way Eric DeCosta does operate, we might be talking about that $1.8 million in a bigger light than we are in May or June or July when, hey, the Ravens could make a signing or two as we kind of go down the stretch here. I think another defensive lineman, that fifth defensive lineman, would be really good. This is one of the better rosters that the Ravens have had in the Lamar Jackson era. You could argue it's the best, right? I think that's the conversation for a different day when we get closer to the regular season. But, regardless, a lot to kind of think about when it comes to how that 1.8 could be used. But Tyus Bowser removing that grievance. And coming up in the final part of the show, we'll have a little fun. Lamar Jackson debuted on Power, Raising Canaan. We will discuss how his teammates feel about it, the role, and kind of how Lamar's feeling about it as well. So be sure to stay tuned. A lot to talk about here on Locked On Ravens. First, the show was brought to you by LinkedIn. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. Now, LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. And here's how it works. You can post your job with LinkedIn's new feature that can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high-quality hires. I've had so many great experiences over on LinkedIn, and they truly are the place for you to go for all your job and hiring needs. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Again, post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Back here on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on the Saturday, a bonus edition of the show. Appreciate everybody for being here, spending a little bit of your weekend with me. And who knows, might be back here tomorrow if something else crazy happens or if there's another big storyline because, the NFL, they are a year-round league. So stuff like that happens all the time. Big news, stuff to talk about. So appreciate everybody for being here, making us a part of your day, your first listen each and every day here on the show. Lamar Jackson made waves. He's been doing side quests all across the board. He went on with Drewski and the Could Have Been Records, Baltimore auditions, and everybody loved that. That was hilarious. And obviously, he made his acting debut on Power, Raising Canaan, which a lot of people are talking about. A lot of people, there are clips circulating online. Lamar Jackson's character E-Tone, and Lamar has kind of talked about it. And he actually had an exclusive interview with People Magazine, Julia Moore, who talked to Lamar about how his teammates are actually reacting to his acting debut. Again, it's on Power Book 3, Raising Canaan. So we're going to kind of dive into that. Have a little fun here on this bonus episode today. He ends up saying that his teammates were hype. He said they were hype, and they're actually calling him E-Tone right now. Like that's how they're texting him apparently. He said, they text me talking about E-Tone, and I'm like, chill out, man, chillax. So he said that he's cool with it. He says he likes it. He likes that the team is, excited about it. And E-Tone, apparently, like Lamar's character here, like that, it was some violent stuff going on in this episode. And he said that he was really shocked with his part, where he was actually told in the dressing room, he's like, hey, you know what you're going to be doing here? And Lamar's like, no one told me anything about this scene. And he's like, hey, you're going to be dropping someone at the club. He's like, hold on, wait a second. So it's like violent stuff there. But he ended up saying, I hope the world don't think anything different of me, but it is what it is what his quote was here. He said, we're just acting. It's fun. So look, this is something Lamar, and he again, has done a lot of different things. Like he has his hand dipped in a lot of different things. And, off the field, it feels like he just kind of pops up everywhere. And this was something that was being teased for a while, but I think that he's really excited about this because in this interview, he said that he is open to doing more acting roles after his career is over. He said, oh, definitely. Yeah, I definitely can do it after the NFL. Definitely, I can do it during the NFL offseason too, you know what I mean? But for sure, post-NFL, definitely. So, hey, maybe we're getting an early look at movie star Lamar Jackson. Feels like that could be his calling. It feels like it's something he does enjoy, which is honestly really cool. So it was he's someone that I think just has so many different interesting tidbits about his life. And I think it's really cool. And I've said this a ton here on the show where, we talk about these guys as football players all the time and, them with the helmets on, but, it's really important to also know these guys off the field and, just know about what they like, their hobbies, who they are as people. Like for these guys, it goes so much further beyond the field. And I love to shed light on, any player that I can, Lamar, anybody, who they are as a person, not just as a player. Because we can talk about Lamar as a quarterback all day if you want to, but I think it's so interesting the fact that, he is in acting and like, hey, it's something that a lot of people might not have known about him. And then he kind of pops up here and you're like, oh, hey, that's really cool. Lamar knows about that. And he ended up getting stamps of approval. Obviously 50 Cent, who was the original Kanan Stark, he got a DM from 50 Cent, Lamar did, and he was like, let's go. And he said that he was really excited. He was hyped about that. So it's cool to see Lamar get excited about stuff like this, right? And it's cool to talk about it and kind of give it exposure. And it seemed like a lot of people were excited Lamar's on the show, and it was really fun watching him on the show. I haven't had a chance to catch it. I've just seen the clips circulating. So, I'm going to have to obviously watch it fully. I've seen bits and pieces and clips, but it seemed like the overall review was positive. And I think it's also really cool, the response from his team. That's my favorite part, is people are calling him E-Tone. So that's the name of his character. That might be something that sticks with him throughout the season. There are already memes of pictures and clips and videos from him and his role. So feels like this will be something that'll be following Lamar. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Obviously, I mean it in a funny, good way. So, I feel like, we're probably going to hear press conferences throughout the year where, his teammates will be asked a question about Lamar and they'll say, oh, E-Tone. Yeah, E-Tone's doing good. He's looking sharp. And I first time it happens, I'm going to come on this show and I'm going to say, hey, you remember that bonus episode we did back on May 10th, back in early May, and I said that Lamar is going to be called E-Tone a ton this year? Well, here you have it. So I'm claiming that now. If it does happen, if it doesn't, well, then I guess I'm wrong. But, a lot of these guys have hobbies like this, and Lamar being able to do this, especially during the offseason when there is some downtime and having fun and getting involved in different things. And obviously, he's a hard worker. He trains. I've seen some pretty ludicrous takes from a couple people on social media about like, oh, Lamar's doing this instead of training. Lamar's training plenty. Like, let the guy live. Let him do what he wants. Like, again, these are people. They don't have to be football robots 365 days of the year. Let these guys go and live out their passions, do what they want to do. Lamar's working hard. It's not like, we have to question Lamar every offseason what he's doing. There are a lot of clips some off seasons. There aren't a lot of clips other off seasons, but you know what I can count on and what everybody should count on? Lamar Jackson is working hard while also having fun. And that's life, right? Work hard, have fun, right? You can grind it out. You can get better, improve. Lamar certainly is striving to do that every single day, but it's also cool to see him have fun like this. So I thought it was fun to kind of put some attention on that during this bonus episode, having some fun here. And, we'll kind of see where maybe Lamar will have another pop-up cameo. I don't think I can't remember what the segment is called with Kevin Hart, where they're in the ice baths and they talk. I honestly cannot remember it. I'll look it up after the show and I'll be like, oh yeah, of course. But he'll be on with Kevin Hart. I don't think that episode is dropped, and that's always a fun time when athletes go on there. So just another way to keep up with Lamar and learn more about Lamar. And I always love, again, learning more about these players off the field, who they are as people, because I think it gives pretty cool insights about just, how their lives are. And that's something I think is really important and should not be overlooked with these guys because they're talked about so much as players. I want to also highlight them as people. That's all I have here today on Locked On Ravens on this bonus episode. Appreciate everybody again for tuning into the show. On the way out, hit the like and subscribe button in video form. You can follow along in audio form as well. 5 days a week of daily Ravens coverage. Either way you decide to watch or listen, you are not missing out on any of our content. So coming up tomorrow or Monday, I don't know. We might be back here tomorrow with another bonus episode, but if we're not, we'll of course be back here on Monday with our regularly scheduled programming. So be sure to stay tuned for that, and I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.